In 2011, the Air Force signed what they called the most successful fixed-price contract in history. The deal was simple. Boeing would build 179 new aerial refueling tankers. The price, $46 billion. The timeline, first delivery by 2017. It is now 2026. 15 years later, the Air Force is accepting tankers with 60 defects so serious they should ground the entire fleet. The camera system that lets operators see during refueling. It's been described as looking through a dirty fishbowl. The refueling boom. It can scratch the coating off stealth aircraft. The fuel system. It can't even refuel America's most expensive jets. The F-22 Raptor and the B-2 Spirit. And yet, every month, Boeing delivers more planes. And every month, the Air Force accepts them. But here's what they won't tell you. The contract was designed this way. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to a promise made 15 years ago. February 2011. The Pentagon announces the winner of the largest defense contract in a decade. Boeing beats Airbus to build the KC-46 Pegasus, America's next-generation aerial refueling tanker. The aircraft that would replace the aging KC-135, some of which had been flying since the Eisenhower administration. The Air Force was thrilled, and they had reason to be. Unlike previous defense contracts that had spiraled out of control, the F-35 comes to mind. This one was different. It was a fixed-price incentive contract. In theory, this meant taxpayers were protected. Boeing agreed to a ceiling price. If costs went over, Boeing would absorb the losses, not the government. If they came in under budget, they'd share the savings. It sounded like the perfect deal. The Air Force's top acquisition official at the time called it a model for future programs. Defense analysts praised it as procurement done right. Boeing was confident too. They weren't building something new from scratch. The KC-46 was based on their proven 767 commercial airliner. How hard could it be to add a refueling boom and some military systems? The first tanker was supposed to arrive in 2017. Full operational capability by 2019. But here's the thing about fixed-price contracts that nobody talks about. They create an incentive, but it's not always the incentive you think. When a contractor is losing money on every plane, they deliver, and Boeing has lost over $7 billion on this program. They have two choices. They can slow down, fix the problems, and lose even more money. Or they can keep delivering, get the planes out the door, and deal with the defects later. Guess which option Boeing chose? The problem started almost immediately, and they started with something you might not expect: a camera. Aerial refueling is one of the most dangerous operations in military aviation. Two aircraft, flying at 500 miles per hour, mere feet apart. A boom operator guides a rigid pipe into a receptacle on the receiving aircraft. In daylight, it's challenging. At night, or in bad weather, it's nearly impossible without good visibility. That's why the KC-46 was designed with something called the Remote Vision System, or RVS. It's a network of cameras that lets the boom operator see what's happening outside the aircraft, without a window. On paper, it was revolutionary. In practice, it was a disaster. Test pilots reported that the image quality was so poor. It was like looking through a dirty fishbowl. The 3D display caused headaches and nausea. In certain lighting conditions, the system couldn't distinguish between the receiving aircraft and the sky behind it. A 2020 Government Accountability Office report found that the RVS couldn't consistently provide the visual acuity and depth perception necessary to perform refueling operations. Let me put that in plain English. The camera designed to help pilots see during the most dangerous part of the mission couldn't see. And it gets worse. The Department of Defense Inspector General found that the RVS problems were so severe, they limited the KC-46's operational use. Boom operators couldn't safely refuel certain aircraft at night. They couldn't refuel in certain weather conditions. They couldn't refuel aircraft with light-colored paint schemes because the system couldn't distinguish them from clouds. Boeing's response: they're working on a redesign. The fix is called RVS 2.0. Estimated cost over $600 million. Estimated delivery 2026, at the earliest. Meanwhile, the Air Force keeps accepting planes with the broken system. Between 2019 and 2023, they accepted delivery of over 60 KC-46 tankers, all of them with a camera system that doesn't work properly. Because under the contract, a defective camera isn't grounds to reject delivery. It's classified as a Category 1 deficiency. Serious, but not serious enough to stop the line. But the camera wasn't the only problem. There was something even more concerning. Something that could damage the most expensive aircraft in America's arsenal. The B-2 Spirit costs $2.1 billion per plane. Its stealth capability, the thing that makes it invisible to radar, depends on a special coating applied to the aircraft's surface. That coating is delicate. It can be damaged by rain, by debris, by anything that scratches it, including a refueling boom. In 2022, the Air Force discovered that the KC-46's boom, the rigid pipe that connects to other aircraft during refueling, was too stiff. When it made contact, it could scratch the surface of the receiving aircraft. For most planes, that's a cosmetic issue. For a stealth bomber, it's a mission-critical failure. The Defense Department's Operational Test and Evaluation Office put it bluntly: the KC-46 cannot refuel the B-2 Spirit without risking damage to its stealth coating. The same report found similar issues with the F-22 Raptor, America's premier air superiority fighter, at $150 million each. Think about that for a moment. The Air Force spent $45 billion on a tanker whose primary job is to refuel other aircraft, and it can't safely refuel the two most expensive aircraft in the inventory. It's like buying a phone charger that damages your phone every time you plug it in. Boeing says they're working on a fix. The boom needs to be redesigned to provide more compliance, meaning flexibility. But that fix isn't expected until 2025. And even then, it will only be installed on new aircraft. Retrofitting the existing fleet will take years. So what happens in the meantime? The Air Force has implemented workarounds, special procedures, reduced refueling operations, limitations on which aircraft can be refueled and under what conditions. They're flying $45 billion tankers with restrictions that limit their primary mission. By now, you might be wondering, why does the Air Force keep accepting these planes? The answer lies in 4 words buried deep in the original contract. Category 1 deficiency. That's the term that explains everything. Under Department of Defense acquisition rules, defects are classified into categories. Category 1 means likely to result in serious injury, loss of life, loss of major component, or mission failure. Sounds serious? Right. You'd think a Category 1 deficiency would stop production, ground the fleet, trigger emergency fixes. You'd be wrong. Here's how the system actually works. When Boeing delivers a KC-46 with defects, those defects are documented. If they're serious enough, they're classified as Category 1. But classification doesn't mean rejection. The Air Force can, and does, accept aircraft with Category 1 deficiencies. They document the problem, they track it, and they wait for Boeing to eventually fix it. Meanwhile, production continues. Deliveries continue. The contract moves forward. As of 2024, the KC-46 program had 62 documented deficiencies. 7 of them were Category 1. These weren't minor issues. They included the RVS camera system that can't see properly, the boom that can damage stealth aircraft, a fuel system that can leak during certain maneuvers, cargo locks that can fail during flight, an auxiliary power unit that overheats. Every single one classified as likely to result in serious injury, loss of life, or mission failure. And every single plane with these defects was accepted anyway. Now, here's where the contract design comes in. Remember, this is a fixed-price contract. Boeing is losing money on every delivery. Over $7 billion in total losses as of 2024. The longer the program takes, the more money they lose. So Boeing has a powerful incentive to deliver planes as fast as possible. Quality problems, document them. Keep building. The contract allows it. And the Air Force, they have their own incentives. The KC-135s they're trying to replace are 60 years old. Some are older than the pilots flying them. Every month, without new tankers, is another month of relying on aircraft that should have been retired decades ago. So the Air Force has an incentive to accept delivery. Even if the planes don't fully work, even if they need extensive modifications later, at least they're getting something. This is what I mean when I say the contract was designed this way. Not deliberately designed to fail, but designed with incentives that made this outcome predictable. And the problems don't stop with the boom or the camera. There's one more defect that reveals just how far this has gone. Let's take inventory of what a $45 billion tanker program has actually delivered. The KC-46 cannot safely refuel the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, the F-22 Raptor air superiority fighter, the Aten Warthog close air support aircraft. In certain conditions, it has significant limitations when refueling aircraft at night, aircraft in adverse weather, aircraft with light paint schemes. Its camera system requires a complete redesign, costing over $600 million. Its boom requires modification to prevent damaging receiving aircraft. Its cargo system has lock failures that pose safety risks during flight. And despite all of this, the Air Force has taken delivery of over 80 aircraft and continues to accept more every month. Let me give you a comparison that puts this in perspective. The Boeing 767, the commercial aircraft the KC-46 is based on, has been flying passengers since 1982. Over 40 years of safe, reliable service. Thousands of aircraft delivered. Tens of millions of flights. Boeing knows how to build a 767. They've done it thousands of times. But adding military refueling systems Boeing has also built before, somehow created a 15-year, 60 defect disaster. Because the commercial aircraft market and the defense market have fundamentally different incentive structures. In commercial aviation, Boeing has to compete on reliability. Airlines won't buy planes that don't work. Passengers won't fly on aircraft with 60 known defects. But in defense procurement, the incentives are different. There's often only one buyer, the government. Contracts are long-term and difficult to cancel. And when a program is declared too big to fail, the usual market pressures disappear. The KC-46 isn't failing because Boeing forgot how to build airplanes. It's failing because the contract created conditions where delivering broken planes was more rational than delivering working ones. So where does this leave us, and where does it leave America's refueling capability? As of January 2026, here's where the KC-46 program stands. Boeing has delivered over 80 aircraft. The Air Force plans to buy 179 total. Production is scheduled to continue until at least 2029. The RVS 2.0 camera fix is still in development. Full deployment isn't expected until 2028 at the earliest. The boom modification for stealth aircraft compatibility is being tested. No timeline for fleet-wide implementation. Boeing has lost over $7 billion on the program. They've taken multiple write-downs and have publicly admitted the KC-46 is one of their worst-performing defense contracts ever. And yet, the planes keep coming. The Air Force keeps accepting them. And the defects remain. Some will argue this is how defense procurement has always worked. Delays are normal. Cost overruns are expected. Eventually, the problems get fixed and the weapon system works. And they're not entirely wrong. The F-35 was called a disaster for years. Now, it's the backbone of Allied air forces worldwide. But here's what makes the KC-46 different. The F-35 was pushing the boundaries of technology. It was doing things no aircraft had ever done before. Its problems came from innovation. The KC-46 is a refueling tanker based on a 40-year-old commercial aircraft design. Its problems came from a contract structure that prioritized speed over quality, delivery over functionality. In 2011, the Air Force called this contract a model for future programs. 15 years and 60 defects later, maybe it is a model. A model of what happens when we design contracts that make delivering broken planes more attractive than delivering working ones. The KC-46 will probably work someday. Boeing will fix the camera. They'll modify the boom. The deficiencies will eventually be resolved. But we'll have spent 15 years and billions in additional costs to get there. And we'll have proven that in defense procurement. A fixed-price contract doesn't fix anything. It just changes who pays for the failures. In this case, it's the taxpayers who pay, and the pilots who fly, and the mission that waits. If you want to understand more about how defense contracts actually work, I've made a video about the F-35 program. Another $45 billion story with a very different ending. Link in the description. I'm also putting all the sources for this video in a pinned comment, including the GAO reports, the Inspector General findings, and the original contract documents. Everything I cited, you can read yourself. If this video helped you understand something you didn't before, consider subscribing. I make one video like this every week. Deep dives into the money behind the headlines. Thanks for watching.